Okay.
All right. So we're gonna start. I'm gonna start with a song that I thought of you when I heard it.
Okay.
Here we go.
It's all good, baby. It was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine. Salt and pepper and heavy D up in the limousine.
Yeah.
Oh, great song.
Great song. And to welcome to the show, Danny. Through the Fire. You're officially our first guest on this project. Shandeep and I are collaborating, and for those watching the channel, Danny is a dear brother I met a few, I would say, has it been a year or more already?
Oh, a year.
A year. Danny's a friend, a father, a broker, a coach, an author, a speaker, and conscious living practitioner. You're known as real estate's coach agency top producing coach, and your business did over $1 billion in real estate volume in 2018.
Yes.
You have events, transformational events. Relentless is one of them, to transform mind, body, and business, which is a 3-day business transformational event that we can go into later on. You've written 2 books.
One book so far.
What's that?
One book, The Resilience Roadmap.
The Resilience Roadmap. And you have a course, which is an 8-week course, which is called Breakthrough. Yeah. Welcome to the show, Danny.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here, guys.
Yeah, super excited to have you. Through the Fire is something that the name was already there, and we decided to use it to because we feel, Shandeep and I, through the experimentation of putting this project together and putting it out during these times, we all get to walk through the fire. We've all walked through the fire, and we're all walking through the fire, and at some point we got to walk through it, right? So we thought about you as our first guest because you're a great inspiration to us, to me personally, and we want to share you with the world.
Let's do it.
Simple. Let's do it.
Good. Yeah.
Shandeep, is there anything you'd like to kick off with?
Sure. I want to be, let's just go back to the first time I met you, Danny, and I feel like I just want to bring out that I don't feel like when we met at One Heart that we really got an opportunity to connect. And I feel like I've connected more with you post what we went through, through WhatsApp messages or just learning more about you. I had no idea who you were. And then all these people talk about you. I've seen your Instagram live, I've seen the way that you talk to people and motivate people. And it's been pretty inspirational and exciting because, I'm going through the journey, which I feel like you've gone through. And a lot of what you talk about when you get on stage about breakthroughs, I feel like I've faced those in my life. And, I'm a CEO of a small startup, and there's a lot of growth that's happening. There's a lot of confusion that's happening with what's going on currently. So there's a lot of stuff that I'm personally going through in my business, but seeing the way that, I'd love to hear from you how you operate and what your mindset is when you go forward and when you wake up every day. How do you start that day? How do you operate the way that you operate in your business? And would love to just get to know a little bit more about you as we continue through this conversation.
Yeah, and thank you for having me, guys, on the show. I guess I'll start off by saying, and I want to be very sensitive to the fact that there's a lot of people struggling right now. There's a lot of people struggling internally, emotionally, mentally. There's people physically ill, and that breaks my heart, obviously. And so what I'm about to say, I don't mean to say it in an insensitive way. It's just what has helped me to get through these times that we're going through right now. And, Shandeep, the first thing that comes to mind to me is that my mental and emotional state hasn't changed throughout all of this because I put together the work and I went through the fire, basically. You know, my spiritual journey began last year when I met both of you at One Heart, obviously, and you know, through sitting with ayahuasca and really, you know, going deep in the areas that I not only didn't want to go deep in, but the areas in my life that I didn't even understand were an issue. You know, I think you're so blind to, you know, for me, how judgmental I was, how scared I was, how fearful I was of people seeing who I really was, you know. And I think once I started that and I combined my spiritual journey with, you know, 20 plus years of my mindset journey, I think the combination of those two has found me in a really great place recently. And, you know, I start my day like I do any day. I wake up, I work out still, you know, have a little garage gym here, or even if I don't, you could just find, you know, some yoga online or you know, Pablo can help with that. There's always a way to get your body flowing, right? And then I do some sort of meditation. Today I sat for 45 minutes. It was beautiful. I just kind of covered my eyes and just, I needed it today. And then I'll typically end with some sort of breath work. And that's my routine. And as a result of that routine, guys, I think that I'm able to cope with all of this in a much easier fashion. And as a result of that, adapt to the current circumstance and grow. The company's actually growing right now. So
can you maybe, you know, we can take a step back, and you mentioned that there was this mindset you had for 20 years, and then combined with your prerogative to be, you know, move towards more spiritual awakening, that's what's gotten you to this point. So can you speak a little bit about what your mindset used to be, what inspired a shift, and what that shift has done to your life?
Sure. So that's a great question. So, you know, my mindset used to be one, I always, you know, I wrote this down when I was 19 years old. I wrote down the words, my mission. My mission is to be the greatest man I could be with the gifts and talents that God has blessed me with, and help others to be their greatest with their gifts and their talents. And that's always been my mission statement, right? The problem with the mission statement was I thought back then that the greatest that I could be with my gifts and talents was making money and spending it on materialistic things, because I didn't realize that my ego was in control the whole time. And so did I spend time reading books? Yeah. Did I spend time going to seminars? Absolutely. Did I hire and gain coaches for different areas of my life? For sure. Yes. It's what helped me, you know, become successful in the business world. The problem is, guys, is that underneath it all was a massively scared little boy whose ego was in complete control of his life, quite frankly. And I was just never aware. I was never aware of that. I never had a clue. So when I say that I worked on my mindset, I worked on it to help me become successful. Where if you want to become successful at anything, you got to control what you can control. You know, you got to protect your thoughts, right? You have to have a focus. You got to live by faith instead of fear. You have to have an action plan, right? You have to go out and take action on that plan and track your numbers and make adjustments based off those numbers, right? The thing I'm trying to say is that the goal, the end goal wasn't freedom. It wasn't peace. It wasn't happiness. It wasn't joy. I'm going to go ahead and say it. I can't believe I'm saying it. It wasn't even really to help people. It was to help fill my own ego, my own need, my own, this little thing to be loved and so forth and so on because of an emotional wounds that I had. So if you combine all of that, right, which was good, it was good, you know, and then you finally wake up to the truth of life, man. And you finally wake up to the truth of how beautiful God is and how beautiful we are as gods, you know, and how powerful we really can be. And you combine those things, oh man, it's like magic.
Would you be open to talking about what led to that awareness of that scared boy, and how did you come to the fact that this spiritual path is what I need.
Yeah, it's interesting. I will say this because it just hit. Pablo, you don't know this, but you were a big part of it. Because I remember when I was first going on my first One Heart journey, what led to that One Heart journey was number one, my mother had died. And I will get, I don't mean, please, I don't mean to confuse anyone's spiritual views or anything like that. But my mother was a devoted Christian, like I'm talking like church every Sunday. So were we. And I saw her, my mother, not only get sick from lung cancer, which she never smoked a day in her life, and then like wait for something to come and save her. And it, unfortunately, I saw her just diminish right before my eyes for 5 years. And there was something inside of me that was triggered, and something inside of me that said, no, something's wrong here. Something's missing in my spiritual beliefs. And I don't want to believe anymore. I want to know. Like, I want to know. Like, I'm tired of believing, right? I want to know. And I want to know who I am, and I want to know what I'm really about, And then, so that was the trigger. And I was going through a divorce at the time. I was sitting in a little apartment all by myself, crying half the time because I was just like having to deal with my stuff, right? And I saw a friend of mine, Gerard Adams, and I saw him on Instagram with the biggest smile I had ever seen on his face, the biggest smile, right? And massive smile, and I'm like, and he this weirdo paint and all this weird stuff on his face, and I'm like, what the hell is this guy doing? So like 2 months later, I happen to talk to him, and I go, hey man, what did you do for New Year's? He goes, oh, you gotta go check this thing out. I did ayahuasca. The minute he said it, there was something in my heart that says, I'm in. Because 10 years ago, another friend who walks around with a big smile, who's very conscious, told me about it, but I dismissed him completely because I thought that shit was of the devil. Quite frankly, that's how I used to think. And so I'll never forget, here I go, I come rolling up to the first One Heart journey, right? Big egomaniac, so concerned if you're looking at my nice Louis Vuitton bag, or if you see my the sunglasses, the stupidest shit, just the dumbest things, right? That happily are no longer a concern of mine. And I remember I see Pablo, and I will never forget this. Something inside of me said, because here was an image of the exact opposite of who I was at the time. When you look at Pablo, he don't care. He don't care how long his hair is. Me, I got to cut my hair every 2 weeks. I have to maintain an image. You know what I'm saying? And here's Pablo, and he's just doing the Pablo thing. And I'm not Pablo. I don't think I've ever told you. Maybe I told you, but I don't think I've ever. I don't know. I remember I thought something inside of me. A voice said, "I want to be like that someday." Honest God, because he just was an example of freedom. Like, he didn't care. Like, I saw him, and then I saw other people like Salmon and like Tim, and just so many different people that all had this quality inside of them. Mm-hmm. And here I was, my mind was so preoccupied with looking a certain way and showing a certain thing, and all of these people didn't give a damn, and you could just feel it in them, and that's when my journey began, really.
And to add to that, this requires maintenance too, man. This ego, the freedom identity also requires a little bit of maintaining.
Yeah.
Wow. Every time I hear you, Danny, you inspire me to like do push-ups and get on the phone and start some ridiculous business deals that I'll know I'll succeed. You just have this contagious energy and power to you. This confidence, and I really admire it. It's one thing that drew me to you. I'm like, who is this guy walking with such a stand, such a posture, so so confident, so detailed. And where do you feel like in your life, because I know a little bit of your background, and I've read a little bit about it as well before getting on the call. You weren't burned with the silver spoon in your mouth. Nothing has been handed to you.
No.
And it's quite fascinating for all people from all walks of life to decide to do something, have a dream, and get it done. What was that point for you? Where were you in life? And what was that point that you said, I'm going to do something different? And how did you start? For people out there that can feel that they can't, ideally, this is for people that can't relate.
Okay.
You can't relate to me, can't relate to Shandeep, can't relate to our lifestyle, and are looking for that turning point because they're either just stuck in front of the fire and it's like, and we got to walk through it. Right. So what was that point for you?
Okay. I'll tell you, I'm going to get deep here. I'm going to go like way back here. Okay.
Yeah.
So I remember when my parents got divorced. I was 13 years old. And I remember at the time we lived in an apartment in New York City, not nice middle-class area family. And we moved out and my mother and us three boys moved into New Jersey. Well, I'm the oldest at the time. And I remember at the time we had a big German Shepherd. And we were coming back to New York, I don't know for what. And I'll never forget this. It was like a two-seater pickup truck, and there were like 6 of us in the truck, typical Hispanic thing to do, right? And so like we're all like piled on each other, and we pull up, and I don't remember what we were going there for, but we pulled up to my father's apartment, our old apartment. And he came up to the window, and I remember him getting into some sort of an argument with my mother. And I remember grabbing the dog and like putting it up in the window, like almost saying like, no, like there's a division now, like, and this is my family now. And I vividly just remember like I took over the responsibility, And so I guess when I look back at, my ability to decide I'm going to do something and do something, it came from not having a choice. There's so much power in not having a choice. So we moved to California and my mother couldn't drive the car because you don't need to know how to drive a car in New York City, right? Sure enough, I convinced her, I knew we needed to have a car. I convinced her to buy a car. It was for $2,500. I'll never forget that. She bought this car and it was a Hyundai Excel, though I didn't realize it was a stick shift. So my mother was a very, very timid woman. So, if we would be driving and we'd pull up to a stoplight and it was like this, no problem. She'd put it in gear and she'd keep going. But if we were on a little bit of a hill and we were at a stoplight, forget about it. The clutch would go in, she'd like start panicking, this big old nightmare would occur. And finally I just said, Mom, I got it. So I learned how to drive, and if you could picture this, at 13 years old, I was driving our family around. This is a true story. It's another example. I didn't have a choice. I felt like I didn't have a choice. I just took on that responsibility. Then came wrestling, and I only wrestled for 2 years. But I had a goal. I wanted to win the league championship in wrestling. And I remember I drew out on a little piece of paper, I was going to have 35 matches, and I kept track of all my wins and all my losses. And my goal was just to win the league championship to go to CIF finals. Right? And after only wrestling for 2 years, that was a big kind of deal because there was much better wrestlers than me. Not to mention I had to compete with people in my own team to win the position at that weight, And sure enough, I did everything. I focused my mind and I won the league championship and I went to CIF. And I didn't place to go to state, but I was like just outside. I made it to the second day and then I lost that morning. And then I turned 18 years old and I have this audacity. I think to myself, I don't want my little brother growing around this neighborhood anymore. And I got to buy us a house. Because again, Pablo, for many people, they don't realize that like there is no savior coming, No one's coming to help change your life. No one's coming to help fix your emotional issues. No one's coming to help you make you better at yoga or help you play the guitar better or help build your business for you. There is nobody. And I think that's the gift, Pablo. The gift is that I have accepted no one is coming. And I don't know what it feels like to have someone over me in terms of a leadership position where I can go to, like, I don't have a father, I don't have any, there's just me. So I got to find a way to figure it out. And, you know, through that came some trauma, but at the same time, through that came some strength. And I think that's where it all began for me, honestly.
It's interesting because through your parents' divorce, right, as a 13-year-old, you know, you learned you had to step into a new role, right, as a 13-year-old for your family, for yourself, using your aggression and your power to create that boundary between your family and dad, right, whatever that situation may have been. You know, you move to another place. At 13, you're breaking the law, you're driving, and it's like you're breaking the law and you're doing whatever it takes, right? And then it's like you consciously decide that you want to make an effort to come afloat, to buy a house, to make sure that your brother is not walking through these neighborhoods. So you have an emotional response, and then you have the wrestling where you're putting your body into it. There's a physical response. So mind, body, and there's that underlying spirit that is just pushing you forward. Mm-hmm.
I want to bring up something. You know, one thing that, Danny, you've talked about a lot is this internal feeling of strength. And you've mentioned a few times that you didn't have a choice, right? But something that also caught my attention, you said, I live in faith instead of fear. And that, you know, so when you think about all of those items and you think about the fact that there isn't a savior coming, you know, in your words, there isn't a savior coming. How do you approach your faith on a daily basis? And how do you approach faith in things that you do when, you know, there's this concept of there isn't a savior coming?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I realize that I can only control what I can control. And I choose to invest my energy in those things. It's so interesting that we're having this conversation right now. Because this morning, out of the last 14, 15, 16, 17 days we've been in quarantine, today was the first day that I was like, man, I don't feel like doing anything today. It's a gloomy day outside, and that's not me. That's not me. I typically wake up and I'm like, all right, let's get it done. I'm just like, it's my habit now, you know? But I literally, and you know, I didn't feel like it. And so what I did, I had to tap into that faith because I was feeling a little bit, not fear, but a little bit almost like depression a little bit. You know, I don't know what was going on. I really don't. And so I had to tell myself, you have a choice. And so, you know, what I did, and typically people don't realize is like on Instagram, I'll post a video or something, you know, me running or me working out. I'm posting it for accountability. I'm posting it to help me get through a time where I don't want to do this thing. So sure enough, today I put up my camera, I did my workout in the rain, by the way. It was running, and I ran down the hill, I ran to the gym, the garage, I did my weights, whatever, and then I picked up the camera and I sat there, and I didn't want to meditate today, so I threw on Joe Dispenza, I covered my eyes, and I just let the camera play, and I just recorded myself. Because I wanted to show people, and look, this may be right, wrong, and indifferent. I mean, I think I'd be way further ahead in business success if I only focused on business, but I just care so much about people. That's just how I am. So I want to show them like they can do this too. I know it's tough right now. I know it's difficult. I know it's scary. But if I was able to, you know, get out of bed and do the workout and sit in my meditation, right, and prepare myself, then I think that other human beings have the power to do that as well. We just got to learn to tap into that power. So that's a daily decision that I make, guys, is that I choose to live by faith versus fear. And that is a conscious choice, you know, because when your thoughts leads to feelings and your feelings lead to emotions. And most people don't understand that the root of it all is a thought. If you could learn to address the thought, then you could learn to address how you feel. And if you could learn to address how you feel, then you could learn to address emotion. Emotion is motion. It's a feeling and action, right? And so I sat there and I didn't feel like it. And I vividly remember I was doing some push press today with some weights. And there was a moment where it just clicked and it just boom, like, okay, all right, I'm back. And then I just kind of went for it a little bit more. But it took me a good 15 minutes to get in that zone. That's an example of how we as human beings have the power to control what we can control. I can't control there's a virus out there right now. I can't control that. But I can control to my ability to put my mind, my body, my immune system, and my soul in a position to where if ever confronted with the virus, I know I'm going to defeat it. Period in the story, which when you have that kind of confidence, you don't have anything to be afraid of.
You know, it's interesting you say that, and maybe Pablo, you can add some color to this too, but I've done a few, silent meditation Vipassana courses, and one thing that I realized, it's different than what you just said, Danny, where, you talked about how thought leads to a feeling. What is talked about in those courses is how it's all just sensations, right? It's the thought or the feeling, they are all just sensations. One is a product of the mind, one is a product of the body, but it's still just a sensation. And, for example, if I pinched your skin, right, that would generate a thought like, how dare you, so it's the sensation that drives any kind of action or any kind of thought. And once you have that thought, then you go into what you just said, because that thought leads to an amplification of that feeling, and it just keeps going. And somebody who's just been having a bad day, you say something like not that big to them, they'll blow up because it's just been building up that whole day.
Right.
So one of the things is that I've found when I meditate is, sometimes it's this, and sometimes it's the heart that's driving emotions, and how do you stay stable through it. And Pablo, you mentioned something last week which I really liked, and you talked about accountability and how you have this power, right? And it's echoing what Danny's saying right now with the power of choice, right? So would love to hear a bit, and I think it would be helpful for everybody who's watching this too. Pablo, what's your perspective on this? How do you go about this relation between thought and what Danny just said, between having no choice or having a choice? Sorry.
If we're blessed if we have the opportunity to have access to information. I feel when I was growing up, I didn't have YouTube. I didn't have access to even, I remember the internet was a plastic box and it was green lettering. And there wasn't that much imagery to it. And now there's no reason why people should not be healthy.
Mm-hmm.
I find no reason why people should not be healthy and training their bodies and meditating and doing what works for this vessel, because there's so much free information out there, readily accessible for everyone and anyone to step into owning this life and owning this, the mind. There is something to, and Danny, I would like to get your input on it. Accountability is something that I can relate to when it's like, okay, for example, these videos that we're putting together, it's for accountability. Sharing something online is for accountabilities. I want to walk the walk. I want to talk the talk so I can keep walking the walk and stay in the practice, stay connected to the practices in every way, in any way, whether I'm reading, watching something, moving my body, meditating, sharing something, speaking. I want to be in this vibration as much as possible all the time. Danny, how much of it is consistency and discipline? Because that's huge.
All of it, I think. Because it's all I know. It's all I know. Like, I know if I don't wake up and I don't get my workout in, my meditation in, my breath work in, and sometimes even, you know, hydrotherapy, which I like to do every single day. And then I also don't do it in the evening, at least for a little bit. I call it my morning prime and my PM prime. I know that's going to have an effect on my energy. I know that for a fact. I know if I have alcohol, right, that's going to have an effect on my energy. I didn't know that back then. I didn't know that when I first met you guys, Pablo. I had no idea. And I didn't even know it up until maybe 6 months ago, you know? But now I know. I know that, you know? I know if I eat animal, for example, that's going to have a major effect on my energy. I know that. And so these are things that, and by the way, I'm not trying to push my beliefs on anybody, but these are things that for me, I put myself in a little, you know, disciplined box, and that little box works for me, and it's what keeps me in a great state all the time, quite frankly.
And what inspired that? You know, you talked about recently becoming, you know, giving up animal products, and you know, it sounds like alcohol has been something that's been on top of your mind. But when you think about these new initiatives and these new changes, what is that? What is that like, and how do you take that to habit?
You know, I remember how I said I didn't feel good today?
Yeah.
I had 2 glasses of wine last night for the first time in 4 months. And it just clicked. For the first time, you know, something happened last night. I was just by myself. You know what? Let me just go. And it's like, but look, and I'm just saying, and it had an effect on my energy today. You know, I had to work myself out of it. Anyhow, you said about the animals. So it started with ayahuasca. It started 10 years ago. 10, 11, 12 years ago, I've always been health conscious, right? But it was always like ego health conscious, like, you know, like, do I have a 6-pack, or do I have big muscles, or, you know, whatever, right? And then I remember, like, as I would be working to build my muscles, I would need to eat so much animal, right? And this little thought would come to me, and this is why I know, like, I know I have a higher self. I know I have a higher consciousness, because it always spoke to me. It always spoke to me. It would say things like this to me. But isn't this going to mess your digestion system up? And I would just shake it off. And then it would say to me, aren't you killing a lot of different, like, living beings right now doing this? No. And I would just shake it off. To me, it was like that was a battle between my heart and my mind, and my programming was winning back then, right? And so sure enough, when I went and I did ayahuasca for this first time, I just started feeling more connected to my heart. The more connected that I got to my heart, the more that I saw something wrong with killing animals. If you're not connected to your heart, you could go look at an animal be slaughtered right now. It just doesn't bother you, because you're not living from here. You're living from here, you know? And so this is why, like, I see the debate, you know, between, like, vegans and, like, trying to cause other non-vegans to become vegan. It ain't gonna work. The planet is living up here. The planet is consumed by fear, by their thoughts, right? It only works if you could finally feel what it feels like to first love yourself first, like, truly love yourself. Because when you truly love yourself, then you could truly love another being. And, you know, it took me time. And then, I remember I came back from my second journey, and it was like I felt her speaking to me. And I felt her telling me, like, you know, these are living beings, just like the plants, just like everything. And I said, you know what? I'm going to start slowly. I'm going to start only with fish. And I remember at the time I had a trainer, this, you know, big buff trainer or whatever, who was really good, by the way. But he had me eating meat like 3 times a day. And I remember thinking, this can't be good. This can't be good for me. It can't be good for me. Anyhow, I told him my decision. He goes, you know, if you become vegan, you're gonna have health problems. You know, I train vegans, and they have all, you know, a whole bunch of health problems. And in my head, I'm thinking, son of a bitch, like, look at how the matrix freaking works. Like, look, like, it's your conditioning trying to condition me. I want to be an independent thinker. I want to think for myself, you know? So sure enough, I started with being a pescatarian. And then I remember 2 years ago, it's like this thought just came to me. We went fishing in Mexico, and they pulled the fish out of the water, and they grabbed a club and they hit the fish in the head to kill it. And I remember feeling, even back then, 2.5 years ago, I remember saying, whoa, 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 no, don't do that. And I couldn't see it. I couldn't see it, you know? So as I started eating fish, I almost feel like she reminded me, do you remember how you felt? And then I slowly, and then after that, that was right about the time when I went to Bali for the first time. And I met a gentleman over there who really gave me an example of what it would be like to live a vegan life. Not to mention, it's all vegan food out there in Ubud. And it was like, that's it, I'm done. I'm done.
This higher consciousness that you talk about, you know, that you feel like, you know, it's speaking to you and you're embodying it more and more every day. I feel like, you know, everybody on this call does a really good job of doing that. How has that translated and changed the way you work with other people? You talked about, you know, you care about people a lot. How has that changed what you do on a daily basis to make money or to run your business? How has that impacted it? How has your view changed there?
Yeah, I had to find a balance. Because my first year, again, my natural, this is just how I'm wired. It's part of my energy. It's part of my existence. So I can't deny it. Mm-hmm. I find something incredible, I want to tell the freaking planet. It's just how I am, you know? And so, you know, I think a lot of people thought I was freaking crazy, which rightfully so, you know? But I just felt something and found something so beautiful. You know, I found my true authentic self. I started finding beauty in, here, like I'll give you this perfect example. I don't even know if I can grab it. But like, when the hell would I have ever had, look at tea with mint leaf. I would have never had done that before. And I find so much joy in this little mint leaf and the way it makes my tea taste. Like, you know what I'm saying? And anyhow, this is just an example of, you know, a t-shirt. I would have never worn a t-shirt to an interview like this before, you know? And so now I just find myself wanting to help people make money, yes. And wanting to help people build a business, yes, for sure. Because I know for a fact, like I get to live the way I live and have the freedom that I have and have the peace of mind that I have right now because of money, don't get me wrong. But I also just want to show people that that's not the end game. The end game is finding inner peace. And now more than ever, if you could truly find inner peace and inner happiness, I believe business is a reflection of the soul. And I believe your business will grow as a result of that.
You know? And how do you reconcile then what, you know, you've had a lot of success previously and not being of this operating from this sense of consciousness? You know, it is separated, but it's together. You're saying it'll amplify it and it'll grow it if you can bring it together. Yeah. So how do you know, somebody starting out, what do you tell that person? Like, the person be like, oh, I have to work on my spiritual side. I got to do all this stuff, but I'm trying to put food on the table for my family, right? Yeah. How do I do that? Like, imagine somebody back, or not, you don't have to imagine, you know, back when you were 13, like if you had to support your family, you had to help out. How do you, if there is a 13-year-old boy watching it, right? What do you tell that person? How do you reconcile that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I may be completely wrong, but based off of my financial needs and, you know, the lifestyle that I still like to live, which I still like to have a nice home. I still like to be able to travel, you know, first class. There's still some things that I enjoy, you know, and based off of these things, to me, if it were somebody coming to me for the first time and saying like, how do I manage both? I would tell them, and rightfully so, because I did it, go pay the price and go build your business. Don't lose sight of your heart and your soul, but you gotta go pay the price and you gotta go build your business. You know, it's like being a real estate agent, which is people that I coach. I say, you gotta go knock on doors. You gotta go make phone calls, and you gotta go do that for the first 2-3 years of your business life, because a business is like a human being. It goes through stages, and at the beginning, it's like a baby, right? And a baby is very vulnerable, just like a business is very vulnerable. You know, a baby, if you don't feed it, that baby's going to die. Or if you drop it, that baby's going to hit its head and it's going to be harmed. It's the same thing like a business. You got to be very careful, and you got to kind of build your way out of that phase into, you know, toddler, and into a teenager, and into an adult, basically, you know. And I would say that's going to take focus and energy. It's undeniable. However, while you're doing that, give yourself the time to invest back into yourself and invest back into your heart. My teacher says, my coach says, make all the money you want in the world. He says, but don't do it at the expense of your inner peace and happiness. And that's what I like to live by now. I try to maintain, you know, now a work week of about 20 to 30 hours max. And outside of that, you know, if I don't become a bazillionaire, I'm okay. I'm okay. So,
You know, Danny, you work with a team, and hearing you, when I used to work in law and work in different companies and corporations, if I was a realtor, I would definitely know that I would love to work under your guidance or with your guidance. Like, you're someone that I would love to work for, right? If I was like in the employer mindset.
mm-hmm.
How do you bring your self-development, the spiritual side of your self-development, the inner voice, your consciousness, your awareness? How do you bring this to your staff, to your team? How do you share? How do you plant seeds? And just, you know, for other business owners, entrepreneurs, high-level executives that work with a team and want to express or want to share something with their team, how do you do it?
Yeah, it's interesting. So we have, you know, well, we had about 42 employees right now. Because of everything, we're about 30 right now. We did have to make, you know, some layoffs. But we have a little over 350 agents. So that's our group, right? And I would say the first way that I do it is just by example. I think that's the best way to do it. You know, it's just to show who you're genuinely working on becoming, you know, and they start to see that. They start to see that change and that transformation. But the second thing is that, you know, whenever we have company meetings or whenever I have trainings, like, I will just straight out lead people in breathwork. I just introduce them to it, you know, because I believe in it so much, you know. And sometimes it's as simple as telling everybody, hey, why don't we do this? Everybody just take a deep breath through your nose on 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it for 4 seconds. Exhale for 4, like 2 rounds of that. And just say, you know, how do you guys feel? Okay, good. Just a little reminder that you can do that on a daily basis and find yourself some inner peace. You know? Literally just little seeds like that, right? Or reminding them about the power of meditating, you know? Or quite frankly, the people that are closest to me, telling them about ayahuasca. I don't have any shame in that. I don't, because if I don't tell people, for me, it's like I really don't care about them, you know? And if I genuinely care about them, I want the best for them. And I took 8 different people with me. And there were some transformations that are like, my God, like, and all of them were from the organization. So yeah, I think it's just, you know, have courage, don't be afraid, but yet at the same time, be sensitive, right, to the circumstance, and lead by example and really show people, you know.
Yep. How was the reaction when you came from Journey, right? Mm-hmm. From sitting with ayahuasca, plant medicine, and you came into your world?
Yeah.
How did the world meet you? How was that interaction?
Yeah. So I remember I was deeply emotional. I was just like, it was like you mean like, you know, the first time. Now I've known how to like I get it now, right? But I remember it was deeply emotional. And we do something called the Thursday sales meeting every Thursday. And I typically lead. And man, I gave a message that like to this day, like everybody was crying, everybody was connected. It was powerful, man. It was borderline. Yeah, it was pretty powerful, you know. Where I messed up back then is I was a little too boisterous. And I'm such a believer in what I believe that I didn't realize that I was making people feel bad if they don't believe what I believe. And it's not that I was doing it on purpose. It's that
Right.
I am that convincing with my words. I am like that, like sharp, like, you know, I have that ability. And it was making people feel like, whoa, like, wait, but, you know, and so, you know, we lost some people as a result of that. I'm not gonna lie, we did. But I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that because, again, I have faith that everything works itself out, and that was part of my journey, you know?
Yeah.
Now more than ever, right now, we're gaining a lot of people right now because it feels like they need that, you know, they need and they want that message of positivity and that message of hope. You know?
When, you know, you said something, when you find something, you want to tell everybody. Yeah, that's very interesting. And it really reminds me of the concept of operating from a place of scarcity versus operating from a place of abundance.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you're like, oh, have it. You can have as much as you want. It won't end for me. I have all of it too.
Yeah. It's so interesting you mentioned that. My former mother-in-law once told me, because she caught, like, I give everything away. I give everything away. Everything, all my clothes, everything. If you were to come around, I would just I just give stuff away, you know? And one time she noticed it. She's like, you know, you give everything away. I go, yeah, I guess I never thought about it. She goes, why? I go, I don't know, because I could just go find more, I guess. I don't know. It's not that big of a deal to me, you know? But that's how I am. Like, if I find something good, I want to give it away. Like, it's even like food, you know? Like, I found the secret, like, eat freaking good food, you know? And you'll feel incredible. And I want to tell the world about eating good food now, you know? Whereas if, admittedly, if I just focus my message on getting people into my business funnel, you know, maybe that would serve me better. I don't know. I just don't know how to be that way. It's just who I am.
Where do you think that comes from?
I have no freaking idea, man. I really don't. I know. It's why we started Relentless. It's why we started my event, you know. It's so many people would start pinging me on social media throughout the country that were like, hey, like, how do we learn more? How do we learn more? And I thought, I need an avenue to, like, help people, you know? I don't know, man. I don't have an answer. I've just always seen myself as a conduit of information and breakthrough for people.
Mm-hmm.
Danny, I have a question for you. Currently, the world is in a special place, right? As far as we may know, this may not be our tangible reality, right? Because we are the fit ones, and right now the situation is like survival of the fittest.
Right.
In the connection of giving and the connection with there is abundance and there is more, what would you tell someone right now that has that mentality of fear? Like, okay, you're telling me there is more, you're telling me to give more, but I just got laid off. I don't have a job and I can't go anywhere.
That is a very, very, very tough place to be. And I'm going to admit that. And I can only think, how would I handle that if I was in that position? Which is difficult for me to think of, because I've always been an entrepreneur since 18. I've always been an entrepreneur. So I like the feeling of controlling my own destiny, you know, type of thing, right? But if I was in that position, I would say, number one, you can only control what you can control. And I've been in that position, Pablo. When the market crashed in 2008, I lost everything. And I remember my bills were piling up, right? And my bills were piling up, and we had like a physical stack of bills on the counter, and we had collectors calling us and so forth and so on. And I couldn't even afford a gallon of milk at the time. and looking at the bills and focusing on the problem further encapsulated the fear that was going on inside of myself. And so what did I decide to do? People are going to think I'm crazy. I just grabbed the bills, I ripped them up, and I threw them in the trash. Because if you can't do anything about it,
right?
What the hell are you going to worry about?
So that's a perfect example of how you clear your debt. You just throw it in the garbage. No more.
I just threw it in the garbage.
Debt free.
That's it. Debt free. And when they would call me, I would just say, look, I can't help you right now. Do what you got to do. Goodbye. You know? Now, that's how I learned to just manage the fear that was going on inside. Right now, I would not be watching the news if I was a human being right now. Because there is no value in watching the news. None at all whatsoever. I would not be associating with anyone negative, even if they were my mother or father. I'm sorry. This is where I get a little like, this is part of what makes me who I am.
Yes.
I don't have room or space for any negative energy at all whatsoever. If you're posting negative things on Facebook, I don't want to see that. I just delete you or block you. I don't care who you are. I'm just ruthless about that, because that's how I can stay sane and happy and whole, is if I can control my intake, both my mental intake, my visual intake, my audible intake, and my body intake. I gotta be careful with that stuff. So I were to challenge the person in that situation, are you controlling? And are you ruthless about your intake? Because if you can become ruthless about what you allow in, now you got a fair shot. Now you can start thinking, all right, I'm feeling okay. I'm in this situation. What's my first step? Well, maybe step number one is going to find an employment. Yeah, but there's a long line. Yeah, but you see, you don't see the obstacle. You see the result. Then you wait in the line. You know, or a guy like me, I'll pay somebody $20 to get in the front of the line. I'll do whatever it takes, but I'm getting in that damn building and I'm getting my unemployment. Number two, while I'm under unemployment, I'm going to go negotiate with my landlord. I'm going to say, listen, this is what it is. I can't pay you right now, but you have my word. I'm going to find a way out of the situation, right? And I speak the truth, because that's the truth. That's the truth that everybody's in. If I can just come from a place of truth, all of a sudden fear leaves me, because I'm just living in my truth. And then number three, I use this time to think in myself, what can I do to make an extra income? I saw a little girl the other day. A little girl is bombarded here locally because she's making custom face masks.
Nice.
Talk about a way to be resourceful.
Nice.
It's a little girl. She's 15 years old. You know? And I would say those are the things that I would tell people, Pablo. It's you're either going to be a victim or a victor. And in between those two, there are choices that you can make to control how you feel, how you think, what your expectations are, right? It's up to you to make them. That's where personal responsibility lies. You know what I'm saying, Pablo?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's something people aren't too comfortable with, the topic of personal responsibility. Get real comfortable with the fact that you are responsible for everything that happens in your life, then I think that's where your breakthrough is going to happen. It drives me crazy, Pablo. You know this. You've heard this. Hispanics, we always say, "Si Dios quiere," and I just want to tell everybody, like, "Si Dios quiere" means if God willing. I just don't say those words because I believe God wills. So now what? Go do something.
Right.
He wills. Go do something. You know.
Yeah. You mentioned something very powerful about, in connection to personal responsibility. The last few words, personal responsibility, and you said turn off the TV,
right?
And then you added, you want to be connected with everything and only everything that's positive, that's not negative, and that's not, just be in control, in full control. By turning off the TV, right? Inevitably, we're saying that what the media, the television is showing is fear-based, and it's negative. And in situations like this, are these the media and the government that the media is reporting about? Can it be trusted? Do you trust it? Do you not trust it? And how? Because it's such a clear point of like, turn off your media. And I'm an advocate. I mean, I got rid of my television at 9/11. During 9/11, I felt sick. as I was going to work, I saw the towers falling. And as everything started unfolding, I saw the fear and the division. And all of a sudden, the people with the long beards and no mustache called the Muslims or the Arabs or the Middle Eastern are the enemy and the terrorists and all that. And it was terror, 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 fear. And now, for the second time in my life, I see the whole globe in a similar fear-based situation. It's not conspiracy, it's a fact. It's how it's unfolding. And I don't subscribe to it because I, like you, I'm in control of this.
Sure.
So can you speak to that?
Yeah, look, I'll give you an example. I met a guy in Bali named Superhuman. His name is Alex from Russia. And Superhuman told me something that changed my life. He said, Danny, he who reads books will always control he who watches TV. And so when he said that to me, and I remember vividly, when I was picking, and I listened to books all the time. But for me to sit and read Pablo, it was like, it was so difficult. My brain wanted to take the easy way out, to listen or to watch something, or you know what I'm saying? See, that's an example of how not in freaking control we are. That's an example for everybody out there listening. Like, if you want to get real, if your mind is so preoccupied with the machine called media that you cannot sit and read a book without feeling this pull to like leave the book, that's an example of how not in control you are. So then you have to ask yourself this question. If you're not in control, then who is? Or what is? Because you think, the thing I know is that the mind is easily programmable. It's either I am programming it or someone else is programming it for me. This is not a conspiracy. This is a fact. This is the way the human mind works. Okay? So then I look at this situation right now and I ask myself, I have two things I could believe. Either A, somebody in Wuhan ate a bat at a fish market and he caught this thing and then it spread that way. Or B, this is not, to me, this is not a conspiracy theory. This is just me connecting to my higher consciousness and thinking this somehow came from somewhere. I'm not saying I know where, but from somewhere. And then you just start looking at here in the state of California, how we are literally, I don't know if you guys know this, we are forced to vaccinate our kids. Forced, mandated, or they can't go to school. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? And then if something goes wrong with your kid, like your kid gets autism, you cannot sue the government for that vaccination. I'm not talking conspiracy theory. I'm talking about facts right now, facts. So we went out and we found a doctor that gave us I don't know what it's called, but it's a letter that says they're allergic to vaccinations, right? And then the politicians here in California went to vote against the ability to use those things. So we were getting ready to either homeschool or move, but no one is vaccinating our kids. So now I think, wait a minute, isn't it so convenient? Isn't it so convenient that now this thing comes? 85 to 90% of the population has a lowered immune system. They eat garbage, they think garbage, they feel like garbage. And now it is perfect to make that feeling be manifested through fear. So what happens is most of the population just looks on the news and reacts to things the way the news tells it to react. A perfect example, guys, of that is before the coronavirus, the hot topic was Trump. And Trump is a racist, and Trump is this, and Trump. Look, man, I'm at a point in my life where unless I'm sitting next to Trump and I hear him be a racist, ain't nobody gonna tell me that somebody is something. I don't live from belief. I live from knowing. And there's no way that I can know it unless I know it for myself. Now, all of a sudden, what happens? The media shifted everybody's attention. You see, I refuse to live a life like that. I refuse. especially now that I'm conscious, right? And so I would tell all of your listeners that if you just look at it, you know, just kind of like take a step back and look at it, somebody, it could be Bill Gates, I don't know, it could be somebody, but somebody's going to come up with the way to save everybody and come up with a vaccination. And if you have half a consciousness, you'll know your body doesn't need any vaccinations. It needs to be whole. It needs to be complete. It needs to be fed organic food. Your emotions need to be dealt with. You need to lower inflammation, right? It's interesting, as you look at the three of us, none of us has inflamed places. None of us. Why? None of us. None of us look like this. But it's because we practice what we preach. Look at all of our skin. Look, you could see it. You could see it. And unfortunately, most people don't prescribe to that. And so what we're speaking about is truth. You just have the courage. You got to have the courage to read the book. You got to have the courage to disconnect the cable. You got to have the courage to not look.
Gotta have the courage to go through the fire.
You got to have the courage to go through the fire.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. Thank you. It's beautiful sharing and very raw, authentic, genuine. Obviously, you speak truth from your heart, and it works. It works for you, and we need more. This project, Through the Fire, this YouTube channel, the interviews that you're doing on Instagram, and the projects that the three of us independently have on our own. I feel that we just need more information, because at least, if anything, for an hour and a half, people are listening to this versus that. And that's enough.
Right.
That's enough.
Right. Because I believe somewhere inside it'll resonate. And that's where it opens that little window. Just like with me, when the first time I was at a place in my life where the first time I was open, right? I was open to really hearing what I wasn't hearing before. And I saw my friend with that big smile on his face, and I was open just enough, and boom, and that's where everything started from there. Yeah. And it changed my life forever. I mean, for crying out loud, I'm a straight hippie now. I'm a straight up, like, I'm building a vegetable garden now. I'm drinking tea with mint. I don't need animals. I'm about to get a horse in my backyard. I have a freaking Buddha, for crying out loud, here painted. Like, I'm a straight up, like.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Danny, thanks so much for your time. Really, really, really appreciate this.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Really, really an honor to have you and spend time together and share you with the world. One heart. Yes. Yes. Thank you for your time. We know your time is valuable, and we appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing more of you soon.
Absolutely.
Look forward to meeting you.
Yeah. Thank you, man. And enjoy your family, enjoy your son, and enjoy the business, enjoy the abundance of it all. And thank you, bro.
Thank you so much. Keep spreading that abundance.